I'm Sensitive by Rutu14. 1 second, Chuuya is talking, arguing with Dazai, and the next he's standing inside the mafia headquarters. Chuuya takes a second to blink at his surroundings before looking around. Huh, we haven't had those kinds of lights in years. Great. Time travel abilities were rare, especially the ones that sent someone to a point of time that was far off from the present. He had no way of knowing if this ability was one that had a requirement that he had to complete, or if it was one that would just eventually wear off. Honestly, he wasn't even sure how the ability user would have gotten the drop on him, especially with Dazai here. Chuuya! Of course. Mafia headquarters a few years ago, Dazai would obviously be here. Chuuya sighs as he turns around. However, he quickly finds himself grinning as he sees just how young Dazai is. He's still a few steps away and is coming closer, eventually stopping a foot or two away. Chuuya takes enjoyment in looking down at him. You're not Chuuya? Dazai is blank-faced as he always was, but Chuuya's amused to see a light pink flush rising on his cheeks as Dazai stares at him. Oi, shitty Dazai, how old are you? At this point, Dazai is just staring at him, mouth agape. The flush in his cheeks has gotten darker too. Chuuya takes pride in being the one of the few people that can surprise Dazai, although right now he does have a few years of advantage. Almost 16, Dazai stuttering. This just keeps getting better. Chuuya tries to think of what would be the best course of action here. He figures he might as well help out while he's here, if only in skirmishes he knows the Mafia will win. He doesn't want to risk changing anything in the future. He likes where he's at. Haven't known each other for a long time, huh? Feels odd to be comforted with a Dazai who doesn't know him inside and out. Dazai scowls. I wish I knew Chuuya for less time. He's so annoying. Chuuya snorts and rolls his eyes. Yeah, okay, tell me something I'll believe. Dazai's mouth is opening and closing like a fish. His visible eye is wide as he looks completely taken off guard. Chuuya will miss this whenever he gets back to the present. He can't stay here poking fun at Dazai forever, though, as much as he'd like to. Want to escort me to the boss? Immediately, Dazai's face shudders closed. His eye darkens and his mouth sets in a hard line. Ah, there's the demon prodigy. It makes something stir uncomfortably inside of Chuuya. The mood around them has shifted, and he almost regrets asking. Mori? Fine. Dazai turns, his coat fluttering behind him. Chuuya knows how its weight is heavy on his shoulders. My, what do we have here? Mori's tone is downright gleeful. Chuuya takes his hat off and bows. Boss? He looks up, and Mori's smile is only widened. You've brought me quite the gift, Dazai. Mori's eyes stray to Dazai, who is standing back by the door. Chuuya doesn't remember Mori having such cold eyes. He came on his own. Dazai's voice is monotone, and any playfulness that was present earlier is gone now. Well, since our Chuuya is currently away, I will have the two of you paired together. Ugh, do we have to? I was finally free of him for a bit. I shouldn't have to put up with. Dazai whining is the first sign of life he's shown since they've entered the room. Dazai, Mori's voice is laced with warning. This is an opportunity to see what Chuuya will bring to the Mafia in the future. You were dealing with that group trying to steal our territory, correct? Take Chuuya with you and finish it. Chuuya has already decided he's going to do so much while he's here. He does vaguely remember this fight. Dazai had told him about it when he got back, but he was pretty lackluster with the details. He's pretty sure that at this time he was accompanying Koyu on an international negotiation trip. Fine, boss. Dazai always had a way of pushing Mori's limits. As he mocks the word boss, Mori's smile thins, but he still nods, and Chuuya takes it as a dismissal. He turns and strides past Dazai, who follows him out into the hall. Dazai following him is practically unheard of, but now Chuuya is the one with more Mafia experience. This is a version of himself who's confident in his abilities and who he is. Once they're a little further away from Mori's office, Chuuya turns to face Dazai. His bandaged eye is still empty and lifeless. So, this gang, want to give me a brief? Dazai's face brightens just a bit as he meets his gaze, and he launches into an explanation. This Dazai might be a lot darker and sadder than the current one, but Chuuya still looks on with fondness. Chuuya is a little disappointed with how easy this whole thing has been. He remembers Dazai talking about the amount of men they'd lost when dealing with this group. Another person meets their end to his gravity. He kicks another into a nearby wall. Their head hits the brick and they slump to the ground. Chuuya doesn't think that anyone has even touched him yet. He's weaving in and out of the throng of people, taking them out as he goes. A head under his Oxfords, a chest under his foot, a body crushed under gravity. It has taken some convincing to get Dazai to not bringing anyone else with them. Chuuya glances at where he's standing away from the fight as he stops a barrage of bullets from touching him, flinging them back into the crowd. Dazai's eyes are wide and glossy, almost reverent. The flush is back on his face, but much more similar to that of a feverish heat than anything else. Pride wells in Chuuya's chest. His current Dazai has gotten much better at hiding his near fanaticism towards Chuuya's fighting ability. It's one of the things Chuuya knows he's best at. Chuuya turns back to the fighting, but this time he's grinning. He uses his ability to raise chunks of asphalt from the ground and kicks them at those closest to him. 2 people go down. A couple more are badly wounded. There's maybe only 20 members left. He delivers a roundhouse to someone's head and a laugh escapes out of him. He's practically downright jovial right now. The fighting in combination with the way Dazai is looking at him has him giddy. He may not be his Dazai, but he's still Dazai all the same. The last group falls just as easily as the rest. Once the last person is no longer breathing, Chuuya turns back, still grinning, to face Dazai. He's had the time to school his expression, and his face is blank again. Chuuya walks over to him. So, what's my time? Fast enough? Chuuya knows he's likely exceeded both Dazai and Mori's expectations. Dazai's lips twitch, but he doesn't say anything. Suddenly, Chuuya has the goal of making this version of Dazai laugh. You may as well stay in Chuuya's apartment since he's not here. Dazai lets them both into the apartment, even though Chuuya knows for a fact that Dazai never received a key for this unit. Dazai almost immediately makes himself at home, sprawling over the couch in the living room. I somehow feel like my younger self wouldn't like you here. Despite himself, Chuuya can only feel amusement looking down at him now. He likes these little moments where Dazai gets to act like a kid. It's much better than his usual dead-eyed look. He's glad that he provided that outlet for Dazai in the past. At this time, he had just been annoyed with his presence more often than not, but now he hopes that at least it helped Dazai out somehow. Chuuya takes his shoes off and grimaces at the viscera clinging on. That will be a pain to clean. He makes his way over to the couch and stops when he sees Dazai. Oi! Get your fucking bloody shoes off the couch. He roughly pulls Dazai's feet to the floor. Ugh. Future Chuuya is just as no fun as now Chuuya, Dazai complains. But he doesn't try to put his feet back up. Chuuya rolls his eyes. Same as always, huh? Chuuya sits on the couch, sinking into the cushions. The piece of furniture was one of the first super luxurious purchases he had ever made with his income from the mafia. How old is Chuuya now, anyway? Chuuya debates answering for a moment, but decides it can't hurt anything. 22. Dazai doesn't answer anything after that. He seems to be contemplating something, so Chuuya doesn't interrupt the process. They sit in silence for a while, Dazai staring straight ahead whenever Chuuya glances at him out of the corner of his eye. Eventually, Dazai twists his torso to face him. Something in Chuuya's chest cracks at the look he wears on his face. It's been a long time since Dazai's eyes have looked quite so empty. So, I'm still not dead. Immediately, Chuuya's throat closes up and his eyes sting. This Dazai who takes suicide so seriously still, with the world bearing down on his very being, scares him. Chuuya places a gentle hand on Dazai's hair and looks him in the eye. Yeah, Osamu, you're still alive. Chuuya's voice cracks. Chuuya's voice is raspy and thick, and he can barely get the words out without breaking. There's lots of people that are glad you're still around. Dazai's eye is suddenly swimming with tears. A couple manage to find their way down his cheeks, the bandages around his face absorbing a lot of them. He touches a hand to them, as though they are foreign objects to him. I don't. I'm not even sad. I'm not anything. I don't even know you. Chuuya smiles sadly and runs his hand over Dazai's hand. Yeah, I know. But I know you. That only makes the tears fall faster. Dazai doesn't make a sound as he cries, his face deceptively blank, aside from the tears. I don't deserve something like that. And what can Chuuya even say to a kid of 15 saying that? All he can do is keep the weight of his hand on Dazai's head to remind him that he's there. The sun is starting to rise over the horizon of the city. Chuuya stands in the crisp morning air, the taste of nicotine heavy in his mouth. He's already on his second cigarette. He really thought this would be more fun. Needling Dazai with knowledge that he doesn't have yet, showing off a little while fighting. God, what kind of adult is he? Trying to impress a 15-year-old. But last night was unexpected. Chuuya can count on one hand the amount of times he's seen Dazai cry outside of the bedroom. He hasn't been allowed to see quite the level of vulnerability while they had been in the mafia together. It's one thing to see a full-grown Dazai cry, but a teenager? It's so much worse. So far, this has just cemented that Dazai needed a way out. Chuuya almost wishes he had gotten out earlier, but their relationship wouldn't have been what it is now. He has a brief thought of trying to convince this Dazai, to leave the mafia earlier than he had. But ultimately, he's selfish. He can't bring himself to do it. It would have ramifications for his own past self as well. They haven't even dealt with the Habaki files yet. Chuuya would need Dazai for that. Chuuya resists the urge to glance back inside. Again. After crying silently for nearly an hour, Dazai had passed out on the couch. That's why Chuuya had carefully moved outside. The tiniest sound was likely to wake Dazai up. He had conditioned himself to be on guard constantly. He stamps the butt of his cigarette on the ashtray that was balanced on the railing with his ability. He's about to light up a third when the door behind him slides open. Chuuya? He looks behind him to see Dazai standing in the doorway, his hair mussed up from sleep. He looks like he's rewrapped his bandages, though. Chuuya remembers that he had started keeping a stash of them for Dazai pretty early on. It became a necessity with how many times Dazai showed up at his door after an attempt had gone wrong. Hey. Chuuya cringes at how low his voice sounds in the early morning. Dazai stares at him for a moment, then sighs. Chuuya braces himself for whatever he's about to say. You smoke? How gross and cliche. The anxiety leaves Chuuya and is replaced with annoyance. He's about to make his distaste clear, fall into the way that he and Dazai always interact. But then, if only there was a better version of Chuuya out there. Chuuya immediately closes himself off as he's finally reminded that this isn't his Dazai. His Dazai, who hasn't said anything nearing that train of thought since the Habaki files and Verlaine. Yeah. He can't even be angry. He doesn't know. We should report back to Mori about the mission. Chuuya brushes by Dazai to re-enter the apartment. He can feel Dazai's gaze burning holes into his back. He wants to go home. Even better than expected, Mori says, as if Chuuya didn't already know that. He's not going to let Mori know that he's completely aware where his expectations lie. The boss claps his hands together. He turns his eyes onto Dazai, who is hovering near the door again. I believe that after all your whining and complaining yesterday that you should get a break, Dazai. Why don't you stay behind and we can discuss it? The way Mori is speaking immediately raises Chuuya's hackles. He looks behind him to see Dazai is stiffened as he stares ahead unseeing. He knows he's being dismissed, but he hesitates to leave. Somehow he's never witnessed this kind of tension between them before. Why is it happening now? Chuuya, was there something else? Mori's voice holds no more room for negotiation. It's a warning. Chuuya shakes his head. No, boss. I'll be leaving. Chuuya turns and walks toward the door. It takes all of his willpower not to slow down and glance at Dazai again. But he refuses to give Mori the ammunition. His and Dazai's relationship is the one thing he doesn't want Mori to have complete control over. And besides, he's not sure if it would make it worse if Dazai's face was pleading with him to stay, or if his visible eye was as blank as ever. With nothing else to do, Chuuya has gone back to his younger self's apartment. It's been about 2 hours since he left headquarters. He feels restless. He can't shake off the wrongness from earlier. He's about to start pacing the room when there's a knock on the door. It makes him pause. Who would be knocking at this door? If it was an attack, they'd just barge in. Dazai would just pick the lock. He opens the door and is surprised to see that it is Dazai standing outside of the apartment. He's staring at the ground. Chuuya notes with a grimace that his bandages have been changed again. That can't be a good sign. Chuuya stands to the side and Dazai silently walks inside and sits on the couch, though this time he curls up against the armrest, hiding his face. Chuuya has a feeling that he knows what happened and he hates it. It makes him nauseous. Chuuya also sits on the couch, leaving a wide berth of room between them. He doesn't know how to start the conversation. He hopes that's why Dazai's here. He usually never does that while you're around. I guess it's different because you're not you. There's ice in Chuuya's veins. His body runs cold. Does what? Talks to me about speaking out or not being good enough or whatever. He doesn't. Chuuya knows about the boss's proclivity for young girls. It's sickening. But Mori is a good leader, and he can't exactly say anything as he's in the mafia. But he had never considered it for a second that his issues extended to boys as well. No, nothing like that. Just regular torture. Likes to take me apart and sew me back up. Maybe he's trying to fill the emptiness inside me. Chuuya is somehow relieved even after being told that the boss is torturing Dazai for some arbitrary reason. It's still awful, and he can feel the beginnings of rage building up. He can't believe he never realized. I never knew. How did I not? It's always been while you're away. Not so often, but my guess is that this time he's testing your loyalty to his future self. He likely saw how you treat me, how I see how you treat me. Our relationship has certainly advanced beyond what Mori expected. Dazai's voice is still monotone. He hasn't shown the slightest inkling of emotion since he arrived. Chuuya has to fight down the blush that threatens to fill his cheeks. It isn't the time to be embarrassed about something that he wasn't even trying to hide with Dazai, though maybe he should have. It was clear that he hadn't done a good enough job around Mori. There must be dangers involved with sharing future information. God, even when you've just been tortured, you're insufferable. Chuuya doesn't want to attack him while he's in this state, but he knows how to get a reaction out of him. Dazai makes an indignant noise from his curled up position. The only insufferable thing here is your fashion sense. That hat should be burned. I can't believe you still have it. Dazai has lifted his head enough to glare at him. Chuuya is glad that he's able to evoke a bit of life in Dazai when he needs it. They continue on like that for a while, exchanging barbs back and forth as Dazai begins to relax. Chuuya has only been here for less than a day. It's not as though he can fix all of Dazai's issues in that amount of time, but he can sure as hell do the best he can. The gap between them has gotten smaller as Dazai slowly uncurls from his position as they bicker. Eventually, Dazai is practically leaning into his side, resting his weight on him. Chuuya is surprised that he's willing to touch someone else. Dazai's always refrained from touching other people, especially ability users. Dazai has seen what he can do without his ability, so it's not like he'd be truly powerless without it. The sun is starting to set, casting the two of them in an orange glow. It must be around that time that Chuuya arrived here yesterday. There's a tug on his chest that feels more external than internal. It seems like I'm heading back. 24 hours is the time limit, huh? Good. I won't have to stare at Chuuya's grown-up face anymore. It's weird. Chuuya barks out a laugh. Dazai stares at him, wondrous. Chuuya playfully taps the side of Dazai's head. See you in the future, Mackerel. The tugging is getting stronger. Mackerel? I guess we don't have that yet. Looking forward to it. He grins. One more sharp tug and... Wait! Chuuya's gone. Chuuya opens his eyes, feeling as though he's awakening from a long dream. There's a hand on his cheek. Welcome back, Slug. The voice is soft and the nickname is comforting. Chuuya blinks a few times, trying to rid himself of the bleariness. Dazai comes into focus above him, and Chuuya realizes that they're lying on the bed in his apartment. Ugh. How did an ability user even get the drop on us? You were literally standing right there. His head is pounding. About that. I may have let him touch you. Suddenly, Chuuya's head is clear, and he's grabbing Dazai by the collar. What the hell are you? Chuuya takes another moment to look at Dazai. He's smiling softly. His eyes are sad. Chuuya sighs and slumps back to the bed. He covers his eyes with one hand. Of course you'd remember. You knew exactly what was about to happen, huh? He feels Dazai nestle against his chest. I've memorized 22-year-old Chuuya from the future down to the way the strands of his hair look. It was that important to you? And you never mentioned it to me? Neither did Mori? Dazai tenses against him, but slowly relaxes. It was. Convincing Mori wasn't easy per se, but my time with you was special. Much so more than my relationship with you was at the time. Sometimes Dazai can be so blunt that it hurts, but Chuuya can't chastise him for it. How could he when an honest Dazai is what he wants? It doesn't stop comments like that from stinging, though. That one day his current self would be more special than a year with his past self. He can at least take comfort in the fact that he knows Dazai is fully invested in their current relationship. I was reaching my tipping point. If Mori had done that again without you there, I might not have seen the next day. I met Otasaku not too much later, and he helped me the rest of the way. I just had a little something I could look forward to. Chuuya's heart is in his throat. He's done too much emotional labor in the past 24 hours and is exhausted. Dazai revealing that he would have killed himself that day if he hadn't been there terrifies him, and that he had been so close to the actual edge, not just joking about it. He wraps his arms around Dazai and presses his face into his hair, holding him close. It's not like he had ever witnessed Dazai's serious attempts before, thankfully not for a long time, but he wouldn't have been there that time to cut the noose or close the gashes. Dazai clings to him in return. Asshole, putting emphasis on little like I wouldn't notice. I was taller than you then. His voice is wobbly. Chuuya, I was 15. Dazai sounds like he's about to laugh, but Chuuya can feel the dampness starting to build up against his shirt. He somehow holds Dazai tighter. Dazai speaks again. I'm glad you were there. Me too. Notes. Just so you know, 15-year-old me could not handle 22-year-old fighting. Chuuya laughs.